abrupt.
That was a very abrupt ending.
I usually fade out, but
I like to make it sound like they're playing in the background. Like they're here with us. Willie Nelson.
And Waylon Jennings.
Waylon Jennings.
Waylon Jennings.
Jennings. It's going to be a popular name pretty quickly here.
It's coming back. Okay.
Yeah. So this is Where's My Latte? We've had
Where My Latte?
We've had like some time off.
Yeah, we took a hiatus, except for it wasn't. We just didn't have anything to talk about.
Yeah.
Civil War was kind of short.
And yet so long.
And yet so long.
So, Ellen Brinkley, 14th edition, period 6, part 1, part 1.
Yeah, we're going through a little bit of chapter 16, a little bit of chapter 19, and then we'll hit you later with the rest of both of those chapters, and then also 17 and 18.
But this is the last thing for this semester, so let's get to it. Chapter 16, Conquest of the Far West.
Lego. Okay, so, whoa. Before Americans really start driving out to the West, there's other people that we've, number one, they've already been out West, and number two, we've driven more out to the West, and that is going to be our Native American groups. We remember from period 1, we had people in the West, people in the Far West, people in the Midwest, people in the Southwest. Everybody's over there.
Basically, Miss Knowles just listed the different regions of the United States for you.
Also, just kidding. But also we took the groups from the East and drove them out West as well. So they're all...
Yes, that is true. I think we talk about why in just a minute.
In
In a hot minute. So, Western tribes, the ones that are going to come back for us that we need to know about are going to be the Sioux.
The Sioux for sure.
But there's like Lakota Sioux and Dakota Sioux. And for us, we're just going to kind of, unfortunately, sort of plop them together for the sake of the class. But they are pretty distinct populations, and that they're actually going to start to merge together. And really because the resources are disappearing and there's violence against them. So it's through, which reminds me of another time that tribes bound together.
So many times. Iroquois Confederation.
Yeah. But
Civilized tribes.
further south, William Henry Harrison.
Yeah.
The prophet.
Oh, the prophet Tecumseh.
Yeah. Okay.
Good times. Sorry.
So these are still migratory tribes for the most part. They depend on the buffalo.
Just like we know.
We know that, yeah. Okay.
Is there anything else?
Pretty slow slide, guys. All right. So we'll come back to that. So migration. So when is the beef going to start? And the beef, no pun intended, because this is about so much ranching.
So much beef.
So much beef. But we're starting to see populations from the American East Coast moving further out west, which means we're having more encounters with Native Americans. And Homestead Act, I mean,
yes, and
back again.
We started this way back in the early 1800s. 1860s is when 62, I believe, is when we passed the Homestead Act. And we are really trying to draw people out to the West, giving away, I mean, we've already talked about this, but giving away land super, super cheap. A small fee is how we characterize it. So it's just like, yes, I'm here. Let me get my land. In order to pull people out to the West and to have them start growing stuff for us too. So we've got that. We have a bit of hesitation from people from the Homestead Act because of how we view the Native Americans, how we viewed them as violent and quote unquote, we've been calling them quote unquote savages for years now. And so we also worked to remedy that situation there because a lot of people were like, oh, great, free land. But a lot of people were like, ooh, free land, but also kind of afraid of this population out here.
I have been silent this past minute or so because I've been Googling when the Homestead Act ended. And guys, we just missed it. 1976 is when the government repealed it.
Really?
1976. I thought it was in the 80s, but it's 1976. But in Alaska, it was extended until 1986. So guys, just missed that. We could have had so much land.
We just missed the cutoff. Just missed it.
I just missed it by 3 years.
By 3 years. I missed it by a little bit.
But my parents missed it.
Yeah.
I'm going to remind them of that later. Okay. Yeah, so Homestead Act, get the out west. Also some things happening with, what's the government assistance? I'm not sure. Like that is the Homestead Act, right?
Well, yeah, that is. But it's also like we go out there and we'll see this more towards the end of this conversation here that we start having, we run into some trouble. The farmers that take advantage of the homestead, it's not easy land to farm, number one. And then we'll talk about why it becomes like an even worse situation for them. And so it's in response to some of those things, the easy land to farm, the Timber Culture Act, the Desert Land Act, the Timber and Stone Act, so we can buy more land. Fun facts. Because they're sending them out to this like Great Plains region, and it's not the best for farming a lot of stuff. So they're like,
true, but you know,
we have this land, but like, what are we gonna do with it?
Yeah, there's this phrase at the time that kind of, it's sort of builds off this idea of manifest destiny, but it's really very early American climatology, which is that
oh my gosh,
the rain follows the plow is the quote. So by the rain follows the plow, meaning as Americans move out west, so will the rain. Like there's some sort of like friendship between them. The full quote says, "Godspeed the plow by this wonderful provision, which is only man's mastery over nature. The clouds are dispensing copious rains. The plow is the instrument which separates civilization from savagery and converts a desert into a farm or garden. To be more concise, rain follows the plow." That's from memory. I make my children say that at the dinner table every day. Yep. So this idea, like, don't worry about it. When you go out there, there's going to be lots and lots of rain. Everything's going to be great because God likes us.
Yeah. Checks out.
That's what they thought. And then the drought happened. What?
Oh, no.
So labor in the West, limited social mobility, obviously. Everybody's basically broke. It's a dog-eat-dog world.
There's like, I don't even know why we mention social, because it's just like, I don't know. Is there even like, is there communities? Are there even like big societies where we can have social anything versus like, let alone social mobility, like social climbing?
Yeah, well, and that's the thing. Like the people who are moving out west, even like looking out into that Western territory, the jobs that do come around are still separated. The better paying ones go to the white individuals, and the lower paying ones go to African Americans. Many of them freedmen. So it's just, there's not really any mobility for anyone.
Yeah.
So, you know.
What
else? And then the miners showed up.
The miners.
It had to be like a pretty good time at first, because it's like there's gold in them thar hills, and you like run out and you find a big old like a nugget of gold.
I'm rich.
And then that's it. And then you just keep doing it. The problem is that it's a real like kind of surface level amount of gold that you can get.
Yeah.
I mean, how much gold are you going to get panning, right? Not much.
Right. Because it's not like they're like digging mines and like going into anything. They're just like going to rivers, putting rocks in a little
and shaking
sieve and then shaking it.
Now, there are a couple of really important like mineral discoveries out west. So they include things like copper, which really is like kind of in the southeast or southwest. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
That sounds weird. It's like Arkansas kind of region, but maybe that comes later.
Like right above Texas.
Yeah. That's Oklahoma.
Like the middle south
left of the eastern central.
It's like smack in the middle of the country.
Mountain time. All right. So there's a couple. The big one is silver, and this one happens in like the 1870s, mid 1870s, which we're going to come back to. It's called the Comstock lode. Lode meaning
it's like a ribbon.
Yeah. Of that mineral.
Any mineral, and this one in particular would be silver. So we call it the Comstock lode, and this draws a lot of people there. Silver. Also another thing that we're going to circle back around to.
So much.
We're literally just building up for one thing.
Yeah.
We're gonna come back.
But here's what you have to remember is that the people that are moving out west to do the mining, these are guys that are like largely single. They don't have family, and they're young, and they're like, what? I can get rich overnight. And they run out there. They're going to get a lot of money. I mean, they do make quite a bit of money, the ones that are able to get there pretty early. And then when the kind of mine runs out, then it just sort of gets abandoned, but not necessarily for long. I believe I'm boring her. I'm so sorry. What we do know is that once these sort of surface veins are run out, that's when the big guns come in.
Yeah.
Big corporations.
Really start like, okay.
It's like fracking in the 1870s.
Yeah. If it was here on the surface, what what's under it.
What's underneath.
What lies beneath. So yeah, when the surface is used up, we bring more people out, and when more people come out, I forgot about the boom towns.
Oh yeah,
more people come out. We have these, all of a sudden, boom! These big towns come out. This is like the Wild West.
For sure it is.
This is like the Western movies, like the wooden like shanty towns. And then all of the horses and pew, pew, pew.
And one of the things we don't talk about a lot, I mean, yes, there is gender imbalance. Obviously, we're going to we can on the surface study it, is that like women are going to be kind of
super outnumbered because this was attracting only single men.
But when there are single men, you're going to find some
ladies.
Some ladies, guys.
A few ladies.
But also, that gives us a moment to talk about, just a brief second here, how women really become the business foundation out west in running brothels.
Right. Because the job for men was the mining, and they brought a handful of ladies out, and they had these towns, and like, who was going to run the brothel? And that was going to give a little, because that was a business that needed to happen in these places, apparently. But who was going to run them but the women, and that's going to give us a little leg up.
And they make some money.
Yeah.
And that many of them even go on to own their own businesses outside of the brothel. Like they start running general stores and bars and clothing locations. I mean, Oregon Trail, you forgot that all the ladies are running this stuff.
Right.
Go ladies.
Also, watch any Western.
Any Western.
Any Western.
All right, so this brings us into some cattle. As
ranching.
we're moving out into this area of the West, we're looking at Nevada, we're looking at Colorado, blah, 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 Dakota, all that. There's lots of cattle and then our hills. So really, they're coming up from Mexico. In fact, the cattle that really is the big part of all of this is the longhorn cattle.
Yeah.
And the longhorn cattle is a really hardy animal, apparently. Like, it's not a delicate cow. No. Not delicate.
A delicate cow? Have you seen one?
I mean, like I feel like in Ireland I saw a couple delicate cows when I was on the train.
Sweet little delicate cows.
But the longhorn cattle, they can like survive. Like what are those creatures that never have to drink water? A cactus. That's what they're like. They're like a cactus.
They adapt to their environment as creatures, I guess is what I'm thinking of. They adapt to their environment.
I feel like clearly we don't know enough.
We don't know anything about cattle.
All right, but there's a lot of cattle out there. They, when other cattle prices are going to start to drop, the longhorn's going to be steady Eddie. So we start to see people like, what do we do now with all the cattle? So what do they do with the cattle?
Kill it.
Yeah.
Well, first they drive it up. We have cattle drives be a thing.
Yeah.
This is where we get our cowboys situation from, our ranchers.
Yes,
cowboys.
which also comes from Mexico, correct?
Yes, from Mexico, the gauchos.
Gauchos.
I am not thinking of Chisholm Trail. What is the other big cattle drive thing?
The Abilene Road, the Abilene Trail is one. Yeah. Goes up into Kansas.
Yes. Dang.
To be continued?
To be continued.
You Google that. I'll talk to everybody about this. So the cowboys are the ones who are doing these long cattle drives up north. And really they start in Texas because obviously they use former Mexico. And they have all these longhorn. They start driving them north. And it turns out that a good place to drop all these animals off is right in the middle of the country in Kansas, where we happen to have some transcontinental railroads. And so it becomes a stockyard, basically. Of the cattle meat, but also other things. So that is the significance of the cattle kingdom, which is doing A-OK down there. Political gains for women. This is, again, we're just going to kind of add this in here, but women...
Chisholm Trail.
Yeah, Chisholm Trail and the Abilene Trail.
That's what I was thinking of. It's Chisholm Trail. I don't know why that didn't sound right to me. Sorry. Anyway.
So women are going to have some level of independence when it comes to ranching. They are able to get some more political rights out here. There's just not as many, because it's not as political, because it's more of just like ranching and farmland, which means it's pretty spread out. It's pretty tough work. Basically, if you can do the work, you can get by with it.
Yeah.
So.
Women vote first in the West.
What?
Yep.
Wah, wah, wah.
Got him. Yeah. I guess maybe I was just thinking of like long drive.
I don't know. One of the things though that we do need to talk about with this, and we're going to talk about it again, is something called the range wars. The range wars happen when you basically have ranchers driving their herd. It's free range, right? Free range cattle. So you just kind of like shoo them north into Kansas versus farmers. And farmers are starting, because the cattle are eating all their crops, they start like using barbed wire. You had no idea barbed wire was like such a thing.
Yeah.
It's crazy. They call them here we call them the range wars, but we also refer to them as the fence cutting wars, because basically as ranchers are trying to move further north with their cattle, the farmers like use barbed wire and cut off their land.
Yeah.
And then the ranchers just come by and start cutting it. And guys, you don't mess with Texas.
Hell no.
So So it turned into fighting.
Yeah.
But everything winds
the
up
barbed wire was developed during this time period.
It
right?
was, yeah.
Because there were no trees, no wood to build fences, so you got to make do, and you really got to protect your stuff. So barbed wire was developed, used it to cut off the land, and the ranchers got real upset about it.
Oh, so much so. So free range driving isn't going to do all that well for a while, but they have a little hiccup. But, we'll come back to it.
Okay.
All right, so the Western landscape, just real quickly, social, obviously the stuff is going to be social. We've talked about the Hudson River School, and now we're talking about the Rocky Mountain School. To be real honest with you, the Rocky Mountain School is just that Hudson River School people kept moving west, and so they just were like, well, the Hudson River's way out on the East Coast.
Painting more stuff.
So we're going to call it the Rocky Mountain School. It's the same stuff, though. Look at that. This is an Albert Bierstadt called Among the Sierra Nevadas. And it's just, look at that gold, the God shining down.
Look at how he's blessed this land.
So much. There's a little deer at the bottom. It's amazing. It's scary, but still exciting.
Exciting, but also very nice.
Very nice.
Cowboy culture too. That's what the myth of this cowboy figure we get really from the gaucho of the Mexican gaucho. Both of like the cowboy culture and the Rocky Mountain School, they were just like,
they're super romanticized.
Yes, making everything out to be just amazing. And we'll talk in a little bit, that's not like all true. It's really a tough life out here.
Very tough.
No matter what you're doing. Mining, maybe you don't get gold that month. Maybe like the homesteaders, they're having a tough time. Like it's not great, but like we're like constantly trying to draw people out here to like have them settle, and so we can just have people everywhere in our country. Well,
and I think that people kind of do this myth with the cowboy, like it's this purely American thing, which we've mentioned it's not. But this idea of the rugged individual, this epitome of being an American male out there riding the horse and chewing on the tobacco and whatever. I don't know what. Tobacco, right? Anyways, so
individuals. I'm just thinking of Herbert Hoover in my head. You said that.
Okay. So, but I think what we're really thinking of for the most part is probably more of like a rancher, somebody who is surrounded by family, who is in one place largely at a time. But these cowboys were hired hands that would just drive north for months.
It wasn't that like that great.
No, it's probably terrible.
It was like a temp job.
And
it was tough. You were just camping with just the steers.
Also, they don't really eat that good of food. There's this myth that they eat like really, really good food because they got all this cattle around. But you can't eat your cow.
Yeah.
What are you gonna sell?
That's your one job.
They're probably like they're probably grazing on the land like the cows.
Right.
That's all you got.
Beans.
Yeah. Probably.
Lots of beans.
I'm sure they killed a cow or two occasionally.
Yeah, I'm sure.
So
it ran away.
So here it becomes the issue with the frontier. Is it?
Is it the frontier? Does it exist?
Actually, it doesn't anymore. I think it's like the 1890 census that came back and said that the population distribution throughout the West no longer validated that it was actually a frontier. It's like so many people per square mile. And it may only be like one person every square mile or something, but the population density basically said there's no more frontier. So we got this kookadoodle, Frederick Jackson Turner.
He's like, this frontier has been our identity.
And it's gone, guys.
And now we don't have a frontier. What are we going to do?
Let's just give up.
Psych. Let's just go get other countries.
Yeah. Well, and that's the truth. Like Frederick Jackson Turner, his whole thing is like the frontier is gone. That's kind of how the book starts.
It's gone.
It's gone. It's over. It's done. That's all we know as Americans. We always have a frontier. First it was the Appalachians. Then it was Louisiana Territory. Yeah. Now it's the West, and now it's gone.
Right. What are we going to do? There's no exploration. There's no conquest. Nothing. There's nothing for us.
But what Turner fails to recognize, conveniently, is that what percentage of Americans are really moving out west? It's an incredibly small percentage.
It's very small.
Most of America is on the East Coast. They're in urban spaces. They have never been out west. They will never go out west. Many of them are immigrants. Also Frederick Jackson Turner, the West has never been unpopulated.
Right, there's always been people
there. There have been huge tribes out there. So whatever, Turner.
Come on.
You got to come with a better game than that. But it did freak some people out.
Yeah. People got real concerned with that.
Real concerned.
We start eyeing other countries.
Yeah, we're not going to let the water stop us anymore.
Right.
Just keep on going. Get on a boat.
This is America. So, white tribal policies, that's to say, like, our policies for the tribes. So previously, it's just been like, scooch on over to the west. Removal. Like, out of sight, out of mind kind of thing.
Yeah.
And then we start to
You get Grant.
Grant.
I know you love Grant.
I just was telling Miss Collazo, a 2-hour podcast on Ulysses Grant.
Yeah.
Skipped over the Civil War stuff because, like, who cares? Just kidding. We all care.
Everybody cares.
Everybody cares. But, like, the battles, I get it. But then his presidency, so we talked about, like, panics, whiskey ring, Indian ring, all this stuff. He went into his presidency and he was like, I feel for these Native Americans. He spent a lot of time in the Pacific Northwest and was like, these people are treated awfully. Like, they are having a really tough time and we need to help them. Like, he moved all around the country. I'm giving you a lot of Grant information, but he went into his presidency and was like, we're going to help them. But how we help them, what we get from that was a little convoluted, and now we have this concentration policy, which is what I think of when I think of the reservation system.
100%.
The reservation system, it existed before this, but this is concentration, and now if you're a Lakota Sioux, you get this. If you're a Dakota Sioux, you get this. If you're Black Creek, like, you get this. Like,
but we're also taking what was traditionally massive pieces of their tribal homeland, and we're giving them like 10% of it.
Yeah,
that's what they get as their reservation.
Because the rest of it is this is America. This is the federal government's. Now we're going to sell it,
and that's going to be really primarily done through the Dawes Act, which we'll get to in a minute. But this is sort of the start of it. Now, I think that Grant's idea is for the concentration policy is probably in a good place. Like, let's stop just like saying shoo, shoo, shoo. Let's
give them a home.
Let's give them a home and say you've lived as a tribe, continue to live as a tribe. But Grant, not good at being an administrator.
Sweet man, but not.
He just says, let's do it, and then thinks everybody's going to jump on board. But
take care of this.
So the people, we have a couple of groups we need to think about. One is called the Indian Peace Commission, which is in charge of creating these policies. We also have the Bureau of Indian Affairs called the BIA. They are both very, very poorly run.
Yeah.
And it's just not going to go well. In addition to this, the federal government, I suppose without Grant really knowing, question mark, I don't know how much he knows about the decimation of the buffalo.
I'm sure he signed some papers that was like, go for it.
Yeah, so the federal government
just didn't read them.
The federal government starts telling Americans to kill the buffalo off.
Basically, yeah. They're in your way.
Well, not even. Like, I know at one point they're encouraging them to shoot out trains and kill the buffalo. Yeah, it's awful.
That's so mean.
It's awful. And they just leave. I mean, not only from the perspective of like, you're killing this animal and just leaving it there.
That's super rude.
That's not good.
But also the reliance of the Native Americans on the buffalo.
Well, and that
Their
was
whole thing is buffalo.
And that was the goal of the government. The government knew that by destroying the buffalo population, it would bring Native Americans under a more firm control of the U.S. government. It was very calculated.
Yes.
And
we've been making these really calculated moves.
Oh, for sure.
The entire time.
Oh, yeah.
The entire time we exist. It's like, oh, we'll help you. Like the factors back in like period 3, like, oh yeah, we'll help you out.
Yeah.
Now you're relying
and
on
I think
us.
that we're really taught when we're little, and it's not, I mean, it's just because it's hard to really process what the government's doing.
Right.
That like, oh, Americans started killing a bunch of buffalo and how sad that was for Native Americans. But it was the federal government that was like, get to it.
Yep.
Chop, chop. Look at us. We're like sisters.
Oh my God. Wins.
Indian Wars.
In response to the federal government's policies towards them, Native Americans, we're not going to go take this lightly.
What is it? Do not go quietly into that good night.
Do not go quietly into that good night.
English teachers are going to be proud of me.
Classic.
I don't know who that is.
I don't know who's listening to this as an English teacher. Maybe you. Maybe your parents. Maybe whoever found me on the YouTubes.
Hey, somebody out there.
This is for you.
All right, so Indian resistance. We do have, this is kind of the last push of Indian resistance, I would argue, until the modern 70s, where we have the American Indian movement. More to come on that.
We had like around War of 1812, like Tippecanoe type deal. I'm like, this is the last time we're gonna really resist. This is really the last time we're gonna resist.
Yeah,
until the 70s.
Right. So Indian resistance. We need 3 to talk about here: Sand Creek Massacre with the Apache, Little Bighorn with the Sioux. I think it's like the Lakota Sioux, and then Wounded Knee with the Dakota Sioux. But again, just the Sioux is fine for both of those. So Sand Creek Massacre happens in Colorado, again with the Apache, led by Geronimo.
Yep.
Okay. And it is exactly what it sounds like.
Massacre.
It's a massacre of the Apache.
Of the natives, yeah.
Yeah.
A lot of the encounters that we see are massacres, such that even the encounters that we don't talk about, like even if we're going to call it a war.
Yeah.
No, it's not. Sand Creek. Oh, there it is. I was like, wait, where's the third one? But it's down there. Little Bighorn, Battle of Little Bighorn. This was Custer's Last Stand.
It is Custer's Last Stand.
Custer, not custard.
Not custard, like you're not going to eat the custard.
General Custer, he was the person that was really leading the army in the fight against the Native Americans.
Yeah.
And he was the one that orchestrated the massacre that was kind of like a sneak attack, like, oh, let's just have a chat. Surprise.
Yeah.
Dead.
Little interesting stories about this, if you're interested. So when Custer was killed, there's a story about they put his boots in his horse and sent the horse back to go back to camp, and so they knew that he was dead. But when I was in college, I had a professor who was super into all this stuff, and he was telling us a story about how the Sioux women, when Custer, they had his body, they took dirt and they shoved it into his mouth. I don't remember why on that one.
I don't know.
But the one that always sticks with me, no pun intended on this, is that they took knitting, like needles that, are made from buffalo bone, and they stuck them into his ears, and they twisted them around to make his ear hole bigger, so that in his next life, he would hear them better when they told him to leave.
What?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
That's way harsh.
It's intense. I mean, I don't know
but
about
also,
way harsh, but yeah.
Yeah.
But I don't want to be the person doing it.
No.
That's
like kind of.
Oh, that is gruesome.
That's gruesome. That's tough. That's
all right.
That's tough. Wow, that's super interesting.
Right.
I'm gonna take this with me when I go.
That's what I'm saying. Now, this leads to the kind of movement of the ghost dance. The ghost dance actually starts down in the Southwest, and then moves up into the North. And the ghost dance, just think of it as like a rain dance. It's just about...
But instead of bringing the raid, we're getting rid of the white people off the lands.
Basically, their idea is they're going to...
buffalo, right?
They're going to call their ancestors back. The ancestors are going to get rid of the white guys and bring the buffalo back from underneath the earth, which is where they think... in terms of myth, where they think they've gone. Yes. So they start doing this dance, and it's like a super jazzy, good dance. Ba-da-da, na-na-na. Okay, it's not that, but... That's... no, that's really bad. White lady dance. But... So they started doing this dance, and the American government came out, and they're like, "Stop doing that dance!
Hey, you guys, stop!"
I feel like dancing. It's like when you guys go to like a dance, like a high school dance, and they're like, "Don't dance like that." That's what they're telling these guys, like, "Stop doing it." And the Native Americans are like, "You're kind of crazy."
The origin of the dance is different.
Yeah, I guess so. Is it though? So they keep doing this dance, and here's why the federal government's nervous. They're like, "Wait a second, people in the Southwest were doing this, and now people in the North." Middle center,
it's spreading.
this means they're all going to lead a rebellion. We got to shut that down.
Shut it down.
So when they came upon the Sioux again, and up in the Dakotas, and they're doing that ghost dance, they're like, game on. Also, just recently found gold in the hills up there.
Like modern day, or like this?
No, that's one of the reasons it starts.
Okay, I didn't know where we were going.
Yeah, this has been kind of a weird James Joyce sort of rant, but
we're doing it.
And anyway. We're back.
So anyway, ghost dance. We go up there, investigate it, and they're like, shut it down. Wounded knee. Which turns into a massacre.
Oh, it's awful.
That's just what happens nowadays, I guess, with the Native Americans. Is we're just going to be like,
it happens in winter.
Yeah.
And the reason that sort of sticks in my brain is that we have photographs from the massacre, like people that are dead. And it's not only snow, but you see the bodies kind of frozen in weird positions. And they're buried in a mass grave by U.S. military. Sitting Bull is killed after the end of Wounded Knee, shot in the back of the head by a U.S. military individual. And this marks the final unified rebellion against the United States by Native Americans.
Tough.
Yeah, this is it.
It doesn't get better.
No.
So
but at this point, they don't have buffalo.
Right.
They don't have anything. So they're dependent on us or nothing. This is even when, who's it? Chief Joseph tries to go up into Canada because Canada is much nicer about, welcoming people into their area. Yeah. And so Chief Joseph tries to leave and the federal government stops him and there's another massacre. And that's when he does his famous, I will fight no more forever.
I give up. Yeah.
Like I'm done.
Yeah.
We can't just keep dying like this. We're going to go away.
You're very mean, American government.
Yeah. So it's a sad day for sure. So
it's tough.
Dawes Act.
This is what we referenced before.
One more thing.
We're kind of like further constricting the constricted reservation system with this. We at this point have just like beaten them down to where they're just like, oh my God.
Yeah. What do we need to do?
Like everyone feels the same way that Chief Joseph did in that little statement. And so we're going to further force assimilation, which have we mentioned assimilation yet in this unit?
I feel like we have because we talked about civilized tribes and stuff.
But just to reiterate, we're just stripping them away of their culture essentially here. We force them into these reservations. Boom, there goes your nomadic culture. And now with this, we're further constricting them. We're dividing up the reservations. We're making them farm the reservations. That's not what they're into. Never have been. Don't we do something where we give the land to the male heads of household here?
Yeah. So the Dawes Act is going to encourage Native Americans to live as American nuclear families, like mom, dad, brother, sister, nothing extended, no tribal patterns in that way.
Which is not how they live.
Not how they live. It's just an act of assimilation. They will be able to go into schools because the land being sold off is supposed to be, like the land not being given to the individual families is going to be sold off for profit. That profit goes back into the community for schools. JK.
No.
But the people, there are, Christian teachers come in and try to support the groups, but even their process is forcing them to rename themselves, forcing them to cut their hair, only talking to them if they go by Christian names. So it's a lot happening all at once.
Yeah, we're very quickly, just rapidly stripping them of their culture.
Right. And we also, the men are being told to farm and herd, and it's a hunter-gatherer community.
They don't know how to do that.
And it's feminine.
Yes.
Farming is a feminine task. So there's also this emasculation of the population. So we really did it to them, unfortunately.
We really did.
Not good.
We also take their children from them, send them to boarding schools on the East Coast. Oh, where's that big one? Pennsylvania?
I don't know.
Carlisle Indian School.
Oh, yeah.
Believe it's Pennsylvania. So on that note,
it's so sad.
So sad.
But that is one big cow.
But here's a cow. So Western farmer, farming on the plains. What am I gonna get at? So we've got this Homestead Act. We're bringing people out here.
Rain follows a plow. Let's go. Lots of open land. Get it.
Key role of the railroad.
It takes people out west.
Brings people back.
Brings your crops.
Brings stuff back, not people. People stay there.
Yeah, bring your crops back.
The big cows.
Bring the big cows.
We bring crops back.
I mean, that's not a longhorn cattle.
No.
And I think that you understand what I mean by a delicate cow. Just saying.
I want you to know that I cried laughing when she put this picture on here. Wiped tears away. Literal tears.
He's gentle giant. So we've already talked about barbed wire, and the rain follows the plow until God gets mad, and then there's a drought. But nobody knows how to irrigate land.
No, we don't.
Because what happened the last time we overcultivated land? We just up and left.
We were just like, okay, bye. So the people that are moving out and they're like, oh, yay, free land, done deal. They're not like these commercial farmers back home. They have no money. They're just chilling. They're like, oh, okay, this is opportunity for me. And they leave, and the government's like, here's all this land, cultivate it, and we don't know how. We're having a really tough time.
Yeah. And then when there's a drought, as happens.
Yeah, and then it makes it even worse. We don't know how to irrigate. We don't know how to plow very well. We've got these big cows everywhere.
Jeez, they're everywhere. And that makes farmers sad sometimes.
We very sad.
So what starts to happen? Commercial agriculture. We have too many crops. People just, I mean, I know we just mentioned like a drought, but it does rain for quite a bit of time. Right. In fact, when we first get out there.
Before that drought.
Yeah, and so we do see an overproduction of goods. This overproduction of goods leads to a decline in their value.
As overproduction does.
Yes.
If you get too many things, you're going to have a surplus. Surplus is going to drive that price down.
Yeah, and what this eventually winds up doing is letting the big companies come in. We call them bonanza farms. I don't know if we do that yet, but they're called bonanza farms. They're like basically big wheat production. But I kind of loosely, because I'm a rebel. I loosely use it for all large corporate farms. I don't know if that's good or not. So this is going to knock out the little farmer who can't compete. You can't sell your tomatoes for a penny. So
we have monopolies.
What are we going to do? So farmers' grievances. They're angry.
They're mad.
They don't know how to farm good.
Right. There's a lot of little problems that they have. The weather, not awesome. We have to figure out, like, we have to dig super, super deep wells for that. There's no wood. We have to build our houses out of dirt.
Yeah, they're called sodbuster guys.
Sodbusters. We have Laura Ingalls Wilder, Little House on the Prairie.
That's right.
Sodbuster.
And if you're like, hey, they have trees out west. Yeah, you're right. They do, but the railroads took them all.
Right. Those are gone. So no trees to build houses, no trees to build fences. So we've had to adapt a lot. And we're doing okay with the adapting, but then it gets too much.
It's too much.
Sometimes it gets too much.
Also, it's really isolating.
It's very lonely. Literally. Farmers only. You don't have to be lonely.
FarmersOnly.com.
Because you are a family of however many, and then you have 160 acres around you. And then there's 160 acres, and then there's the next farm. House. There's no one around you. You're alone.
Trick-or-treating must be the worst.
Wow. I didn't even think about that.
You got to think
What
about
a nightmare.
It'd be awful. Agrarian malaise. It's such a really specific phrase here, but basically,
the phrase malaise.
Farmers be sad.
They be sad. But what we're really going to take away, the big grievance is the lack of funds and the demand increases.
Yeah, so they're going to look for the government to help them out a bit.
And the government's like, what did you say? You're so far away, can't hear you.
160 acres, can't hear you. You're welcome.
Can't hear you.
All right.
Okay,
look at that angry farmer.
He's so angry. Is he malaised? Is that?
I think we've gone from malaise to
just straight up anger.
He's just
real pissed.
Hangry.
He's hangry because
he's just growing wheat. He's got to be hungry for something, right?
He's not growing anything else.
So
like eggs or milk. Maybe.
Do you grow milk?
Think
about
that.
Do you grow milk?
You grow cows.
All right. So chapter 19, from crisis to empire. So that empire part is not something we're going to be looking at right now.
But we are going to talk about crisis.
Dun, dun, dun.
So, sorry, I had to catch my breath here. The agrarian revolt. So the issues that we talked about last, or like in the last few slides, that were more environmental, those caused problems. But the biggest problem is going to be that over cultivation of goods. That's going to cause, just to reiterate, that surplus, that we have too many goods and not enough people to buy them, too much supply, not enough demand, and we're going to drive the prices down because of that. When that happens, they have no money, unfortunate, but also nothing else like follows suit. Like, because they make less money, that doesn't mean that things cost less to buy.
Right.
So they're going to...
It's just a farming economy.
Right. And also, I don't know, do we talk about the mechanization that we need to Did we talk about that?
No, we didn't talk about it, but we can. We did mention Bonanza Farms really quickly.
Bonanza, yeah.
But part of the economic grievances is not like, yes, their crop prices are going down because they're overproducing, but also because of the new technology that's developing during this period, like the McCormick Reaper. Shout out to Riley McCormick.
Shout out Riley.
Sitting right now in Miss Knowles' room. He's in there.
Yep.
So McCormick Reaper. But there's that's just one example of like ways that we are increasing farm production, but it tends to be very expensive.
Right.
Because it's very expensive, only the really large farmers are able to do it. The big companies, those bonanza farms, which basically means that we're killing the little farmer.
Right. It's kind of like we have these farms like have monopolies essentially. Like the bigger you are, the bigger you get, and then if you're small, you're just like small, and then you're gone.
Yeah.
So
Grangers, just to mention, because between the Grangers and what we'll see with the Farmer Alliance is, Granger, by the way, is like a nasty word for a farmer, but they owned it.
They were like, we are the Grangers.
Yeah, we're taking it back. So they took it back, and the Grangers are going to be largely in the Midwest. We're looking like Illinois, Indiana.
Is a hotbed for the Grange.
Man, yeah. So they're like economic grievances. We also are very sad people and alone, and we need people to help us. And the people they want to have help the farmers are, in fact, the federal government.
Yes. And we're going to appeal to them a lot, like over and over again. So we've got our economic grievances. This Grange movement, it starts pretty social, doesn't it? Or am I?
Yeah, I mean, like the first, like we kind of mention these as like attempts to sort of unionize farmers, but we should make note that it is not a union; it's just organization. But yeah, it starts really a lot of times, or in this case, I believe, was really because of that social lacking.
Like we're getting together, we're complaining, and then we're like, we should do something about this.
Let's do something about it. FarmersOnly.com, 19th century style. That's the old ad. I just played it from my phone.
So good.
That's what it sounds like.
So we do a few things. I'm going to talk about Munn and Wabash. Are we okay?
Yeah, go for it.
So,
well, we should say that one of the things the Grangers wanted was the federal government to provide silos.
We haven't talked about that.
And like at like a 1% interest rate. Like, hey, listen, we've got all this stuff that's feeding Americans. That's what you need. So why don't you just store it for us?
Yes.
Like put it in a big old silo.
Those big, tall, if you've driven through the Midwest, there's like corn, and then there'll be this big, tall building rising above. That's not a windmill. That's the other tall thing in the Midwest. And that's where they hold all the grain. It's storage. And so it's kind of like out of necessity too. Like we have to store it or else it'll go bad. And then we've just got all this nasty weed on our hands and we don't want that. So we want more government control of these things. And number one, these grain elevators, these silos. And then also we've got some beef with the railroad. Too, because it's unregulated and they don't care. They're just like, yep, give us the money, and then it's driving the farmers more and more and more into debt. So we start going to the government. We focus on the state government first. We've got 2 court cases, Munn versus Illinois and Wabash versus Illinois. Munn versus Illinois, Illinois is going to rule in favor of the farmer, basically the Grange, and say, okay, yeah, we'll step in and regulate this, no problem.
And they did it because they said that it was for the public good. Like it was something that the public required, so they really couldn't let just the business guys ruin it. Basically safety issues in terms of like you have to have food to eat or else people start dying. So that was the first case. Yeah, as a state, we will step in and we are going to regulate, here's the key, interstate commerce because it's for the public good.
Right. And so that happens, and companies are like, yeah, I'm not gonna adhere to this. So we have a second court case, Wabash versus Illinois, and Wabash says, you're right, Wabash, which is the grain elevator company. This is not right. The state should not be regulating this interstate commerce.
Yeah, that's a violation of the Constitution.
That's unconstitutional. That's something that falls on the federal government. But we're going to still enforce this really hard, and that's where we get our Interstate Commerce Act here.
Yeah.
And that's going to create the Interstate Commerce Commission,
ICC,
which is going to really focus on trying to regulate this stuff.
Yeah, so some of the
it's
things
our first step in the right direction for government regulation.
Some of the stuff we regulate is they have to post their cost for transport. They can't give rebates. Basically, they're giving like money back to companies that use them a lot, but not to the small farmer. And this is another way that they get put out of business. What else do they do? They have to post the rates. They have to be fair rates. And the problem with it right now with the ICC, we'll come back to it over and over again, is that there's just no teeth to it. Like, they'll just shake their finger at a company.
They'll be like, hey, don't do that.
Yeah, stop doing that. That ain't cool. Poor farmers. And then eventually it's going to get stronger, but not quite yet. Which leads us to the farmer alliances, which are predominantly in the South, and I guess somewhat out west.
Yeah.
But the South is really the stronghold.
Yeah, the Grangers, that's the Midwest. Did we say that? Yeah, because we talked about Illinois, duh. And then we like kind of loop around that with the Farmers Alliances, and it's on the outskirts of that. There are Farmers Alliances that are purely for black farmers.
Yes, they're called the Colored Farmer
Alliances. So they're segregated because it's the South,
right?
But all on the same page, which is that we want to have, once again, increased regulation about these specific things, regarding these specific things.
And they also encourage women to be part of this process. They said that...
Such as Mary Lease.
Yeah, like part of the Farmer Alliance's goals was to, quote, return women to their proper place. Shock, not in the house.
Which is outside, apparently.
Women should be working with the farms. They should be owning farms. They should be doing a lot of stuff. Mary Elizabeth Lease.
Mary E. Lease.
She is also known as Tornado Mary because she used to give speeches, stump speeches basically, where she would rile up the troops, and by that I mean the farmers. And one of her famous quotes was to raise less corn and more hell.
I was just gonna say it if you didn't. I love that one.
I love it.
I put it on my test, on my honors.
I feel like that should just be Ponte Vedra High School's new quote.
All right.
It's our motto.
Not a lot of corn around here, but we can just have that.
Well, then let's raise even less. Let's raise even more hell.
We need to raise negative corn.
Probably negative health. All right, never mind. Mary Lease, we'll leave her to the Wizard of Oz, and we'll talk about that maybe later, maybe not.
Love that. That's
Cliffhanger.
We'll see. So we grow this Grange to absorb more things. So it's not just farmers; it's a lot of people with this same plight, where like they're just being trampled on and more digging more and more of a hole for themselves in debt, and we have this upper echelon class, which we'll talk more about when we get to the East, I believe, next semester. But we are all on the same page with the majority of the population being poor and it not getting better for them. And so we formed this populist party, also known as the People's Party. William Jennings Bryan, big man in that, and we have a lot of different ideas. Okay. So,
and that other stuff.
And we're doing other things also as a part of the Populist Party. It's not just like, it is more government control, but it's not just for farmers. We're doing it for other people too.
True. So let's start with this. These farmer alliances getting together, hanging out, doing their thing, met in Ocala, Florida, because it's the South. And they're like, boom, Ocala demands.
Ocala platform. No, Omaha platform. Ocala demands.
Ocala demands.
Okay.
And they're like, we want this. We'll tell you what those are in a minute, because it turns into, basically, scratch that, it turns into the populist party political platform. How's that for alliteration?
Beautiful.
Populist Party's political platform. Done.
Say that 5 times fast. You can't do it. So.
Is that next slide? Let's do it, guys. I have no idea.
Boop. Okay, good. It could have been bad if it wasn't the right side.
Yeah.
So, colored alliances. That should probably have been on the next page.
We already did it.
So, all right. We got populist constituency.
Yeah, so what does constituency mean?
Those are the voters.
Who's voting for your party?
The people that vote for your party. There's the electorate, which is everybody that votes. And then there's people that vote for you, and that's your constituency. There you go. Gov lessons.
Perfect.
Moving on.
So it's not just the farmer alliances. This extends to the colored farmer alliances as well. Mm-hmm. And because what they're fighting for is government support because they're broke. Mm-hmm. Let's get some minors in there.
Let's throw some minors in there. pick up the Midwest farmers.
Yeah. Everybody's going to start to join together. And it's because they really do have some similar ideas. And a lot of that has to do with railroad organization, with helping out the little guy, government regulation of the big businesses that are increasing at this time, and something called free silver.
Remember when we talked about Comstock Lode and that big old
that big vein of
silver?
It was discovered out in, is it Nevada? I think so. So these miners found so much silver, and they're like, woohoo, jackpot. And then they run to the federal government. They're like, look at all this silver I got.
Look at all this metal. We can make it money now.
Yeah, and by the way, federal government, we know that you coin things because we have a bimetallic system. It is both gold and silver based. We know that you if we give you silver, you will give us a certain rate for gold, like in gold.
Right.
And it's 16 to 1. 16 ounces of silver is equal in value to 1 ounce of gold. So they're like, woohoo!
We did it.
And then they went with all their silver and went to the government, and the government's like, right? So we don't do this anymore.
We stopped this.
You just didn't notice. It was in 1873.
Yeah, weren't you there? Yeah, we totally said it. We totally told everybody.
Yeah, you didn't get mad in 1873. Now you're getting mad in 1874.
And so now this is a big piece of the platform, is like bringing this back to having both the gold and the silver like be a thing, the bimetallism.
Right. Well, and here's it really, this whole movement. So basically what we did in 1873, which becomes known as the crime of 73, we got off of the bimetallic system. We went to a gold standard. And when that happened, the government stopped.
The panic of 73
They stopped allowing people to turn in silver at a specific ratio for gold. And nobody noticed until they found all that silver. So this is why people start getting really upset. And so now they're going to join forces. Now we're going to get political because you wouldn't let me be economic.
Yep.
So now I'm going to be political.
Now we're going to really do it.
So populist ideas. Populist platform includes things such as the sub-treasury system, which is when the government basically charges them 1% interest for whatever.
Yeah.
Government warehouse system. Abolishing national banks. Direct election of U.S. senators. And regulation and ownership of the railroads and telephones, a graduated income tax, currency inflation, silver remonetization. That's a really long list.
Yeah, we got a lot of ideas with this populist party platform, and it's all about more stuff from more people. That's just how I'm going to refer to it. So we have one of the bigger ideas that we're going to continue to talk about is that free silver and is that bimetallism piece. But there's some other really key things that we see in this platform. The direct election of U.S. senators is a big one. We didn't have that. We had the people who were in power picking more people to be in power. And that wasn't really fair to, like, representation and democracy. So, like, we want to change that. We've got the regulation and ownership of the railroads, which is something that we have been looking towards since, like, through the Grange, through the Farmers Alliances. We want the government to regulate more stuff and more businesses in order to keep rates low for the people who can't afford them, and so they can afford more stuff. And that graduated income tax, that is also going to be something we're working on spreading the wealth, having the federal government in and coming and spread that wealth. Those are the key ones that I think are very important. We do eventually have all these things, so that's why I think they're important.
Absolutely. Did you talk about laissez-faire?
No, have not.
All right, let's just add this in here. So basically, what they're really looking to do is to reject laissez-faire economic policy. Laissez-faire, laissez-passer is the whole quote. So laissez-faire meaning hands off.
Hands off. That's how we've been operating, or that's how we were operating in this time period. You see it a lot in the East, which is where we're going to let, like, the monopolies rise up, and we let the income gap stretch, is because everyone's like, but, like, it's fine, and the government just doesn't have their hands in the economy.
It's like a natural selection idea.
More on that later.
Yeah, more to come.
More to come. It's just like, you do you, and if you fail, you fail, and we'll be over here making money
later.
And so we're trying to get the government to put their hands back on with all of this stuff.
Yeah.
So yeah, we good? Next slide.
Yeah, I think that's all right. Boom.
So the panic VTR, so many panics. We've got, as we do in panics, just over speculation, over extension of goods, and then we don't have enough money coming back. The overexpansion, we're investing too much, we're doing too much, and people aren't reinvesting back, and we are losing our investments. That's, the trend for all the financial panics in the country every time. It also, we're going to see another cause be the farm prices. That the low farm prices means that we're not getting money to a lot of people, and they can't reinvest in the economy.
Yeah.
So not good stuff.
And these are more of those, like when we talk about overexpansion, like we said, we're expanding things too quickly without necessarily the demand being there. We're hoping the demand just kind of follows us. And when these companies, particularly railroad companies, start going bankrupt, the problems that we run into, it's like that too big to fail mentality. And while today I think we sort of look like, oh, you're going to bail out, Fannie Mae or whoever it is.
Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac.
Yeah, and like these big loan corporations for student loans, and we're like, no, let them fail. The problem is when you do let those groups fail, this happens.
Everybody fails.
And so we have learned our lesson as much as we were like, no, these guys are the bad guys and blah, blah, blah. And
they're holding a lot of other stuff. Like,
yeah,
this would be a huge domino situation.
Yeah. So there's definitely something there to say too big to fail really is. I mean, it's fun to like scream it, but it's not in practice. Really can't fail. Okay.
Anyway, so Coxey's Army.
Jacob Coxey.
As these things are businesses, banks, railroads are failing, when they fail, the people that work for them don't have jobs anymore because those businesses are now gone. So we're going to see like one of many of these sort of uprisings from these people that are going to have lost their job and call for the federal government to step in and say, you need to fix this. Like, you're the ones that are creating the problem, essentially. You need to do something, like fund some public works. Great Deal stuff, or New Deal stuff.
New Deal stuff, yeah, which we'll get to. That doesn't mean anything to you quite
right
yet.
now.
So Jacob Coxey, out of work, angry, out in Ohio, and he's like, you know what we can do? We can march. Let's do it.
Let's protest.
So Coxey starts marching from Ohio to Washington, D.C. to start this protest where they're asking for, it's a very long walk. You think walking from like the parking lot is long.
Yeah.
Nah.
Miss Knowles, let me leave early because my car's in the junior lot.
Stop it. Stop it. Think about what Jacob Coxey went through. So they're looking for a more public works program, currency inflation, because that helps the poor pay debt off more quickly. And they march all the way to D.C. and they got all these people there and they're like, yeah, let's do it. And then Jacob Coxey, he put his foot on federal property, got arrested.
How dare you?
Yeah, that was it. Do not step on grass.
Protest,
Jacob.
But there's a time, place, and manner to protest.
Yeah. It was basically a way to like shut them down.
Yeah.
Which they did in terms of like the protest, but the federal government started getting real scared. Like, man, did you see all those people and how far they marched? People in America have an opportunity that it's becoming more and more evident that they can change stuff all by marching.
And like, where's the lie there? You can change things by protesting.
You can totally change stuff.
You can change.
And you should change stuff if you feel so moved.
So inclined.
So moved. Get it? Moved? Marching. Next. Silver question. Crime of 73. We already said that, so I may even just delete this off the slide. Next. Okay. Who is that handsome man, Miss Knowles?
Oh, hello, William McKinley.
Hello.
Why does he look so frightened in this picture?
He's very Nosferatu right now.
He must have seen William Jennings Bryan in the distance and got a little freaked out.
Maybe he saw Jacob Coxey in the distance.
Maybe he's like, oh,
people!
How'd you get in here? How'd you get into this portrait studio?
I'm terrified.
Okay, so we talked on the last slide about populism. That was such a loud trash can that was just in here. I'm so sorry, guys.
Yeah.
The wheels on the trash can.
Go round and round.
So we talked about the Populist Party, and I think I may have mentioned William Jennings Bryan, but I probably didn't. So I'm gonna tell you
for a hot second.
So we have a key figure that is going to rise up and lead that party, that movement, and it's William Jennings Bryan.
William.
Does he have a real horse in the race? No. He's a lawyer. He's
man.
a lawyer. He's just kicking it, like not in the Midwest, right?
Yeah.
Isn't he in the Northeast?
But he's like hanging out. He's like, let's do this. Let's have a party.
He's like, I feel you.
Yeah.
I feel for this cause. And he is this great speaker, and he knows exactly what he's doing and how to talk to people. And so everybody really likes this guy. And so he's going to lead this populist party and push across this platform.
So he gets up and he's like, listen, I'm going to give a big old speech, America. And this is at the DNC. And he's
we never mentioned the fact that the Populist Party gets absorbed by the Democratic Party.
Right.
So it's a part of that because so many people who are a part of the Democratic Party are a part of these farmers alliances, feel for this situation, and so they're just like, okay, let's just band together, join forces, and Duverger's law says third parties are not good for you because then you split the vote. So we decide we're going to morph these together, and so at the DNC, at the DNC, William Jennings Bryan, he gives this really great impassioned speech called the Cross of Gold speech, and during which he makes this quote. The reason why it's called the Cross of Gold quote is, "You shall not crucify man upon a cross of gold," meaning let's back away from the gold standard and let's open things up. Let's coin silver. Let's bring back bimetallism. Let's inflate the market a little bit because then people will be able to pay their debts off. More people have more money. What could go wrong? Sorry.
My kids are here. They're asking for food.
So we have William Jennings Bryan win the nomination for the Democratic Party for president. And that brings us to William McKinley, who is the...
Good.
Bread is so good.
My son's a really big fan of the Cross of Gold speech.
He loves the speech.
He's like, it's so... Well, you should have said good. All right.
Big fan over here.
So people love this. People love this guy. He's religious. This idea of the Cross of Gold, or is he just manipulating things?
It's the second
religious.
one.
Then he's a good speaker, and like, let's do it. You were speaking our language.
And then on the other side of the aisle, we have William McKinley, who is put into office by the big business leaders, and he represents that guild over there. So we've got the population, the populist, who's like, spread the love. Let's bring some down here to 90% of the population, and we have William McKinley, who represents the upper echelon, and
he's a gold bug.
He's a gold bug and silverites.
Yeah, silverites want a bimetallic system. Gold bugs want gold only. They're the people who loan the money out, so they want to get exactly their value back.
What they're getting, yeah.
Plus.
Yep,
as my husband says. All right, I think we'll see if there's another one. Very exciting. Howdy.
Okay, so we're back.
Cross of Gold affects. Okay. William Jennings Bryan, I should say, affects a lot about how modern campaigning, or how campaigning is going to change. So for me, the most important thing is that it changes us, although William Henry Harrison had sort of started us on this path of
get the ball rolling.
Ball of getting out there meeting people. It's not just that front porch campaigning that they're used to doing.
Like, you come see me. It's like, we're coming to see you.
Yeah, and so now it's the kiss and baby era. Like, we're going to be like smooching, shaking hands, high-fiving, everything. And that is it's rooted in evangelism in the United States. Didn't think you'd hear that word again, folks, but
we're back.
Did. So this idea of like,
never going to lose
to you, and that sort of becomes, in that facet, a new type of campaigning. But there's also other types of...
Also, the campaign finance aspect of these things. This is where we start getting like the, if you don't have money, you can't do this well type deal. Because we had, and I'm pretty sure we mentioned it in the last slide, but we took a little break here because we had some technical difficulties. But the robber barons that we're going to talk about in the next semester, the really wealthy people are like hand picking the people that they want to run for office because of the type of primary system that we have, which is not a primary system. And they are like, if you want the money of the big people, then you're going to have to do what the big people say. And so, like, this is where this whole thing starts. And after this election, we're going to have a lot of campaign finance reform. But this is where we start kind of getting out of hand with the money. And you can't basically, here's where it starts, you can't win an election if you broke. So, there you go. And it does not stop. Like, that is a thing now, too.
Which, you know, effectively, sorry, Andrew Jackson.
All that work.
This is a nail in that coffin. We ain't doing this common people thing anymore. All right. Well, then that really leads to the end of the People's Party. Third parties are really going to have a tough time ever. More to come on that. But so the People's Party is really going to disappear at this point. But that's because they're absorbed by the Democrats.
Yes. That's called de Vergner's Law.
De Vergner.
What up?
God, one of my favorite. De Vergner.
A king.
Is he German?
I have no idea.
Sounds like it.
But that just means that, like, the third parties get absorbed by the major parties.
Yeah, they have to.
The votes do. And that's why the third parties don't do well. And that's why our People's Party is just going to get absorbed on in.
Yep.
Because they have the same ideals, essentially, as the Democratic Party. But, I mean, they have the not racist part is in the People's Party.
Yeah.
We're still a little bit racist in the Democratic Party.
Yeah.
And by a little.
It's a lot, unfortunately. So we'll keep working on that. McKinley is going to be El Presidente. He is a gold bug. He wants all the gold all the time. He is going to move us firmly to a monometallic economy.
Because the big business people want that to keep inflation down, to keep their prices competitive. And he's in their pocket.
Right.
Because if you want money, or if you want to win some more elections, you got to do what they say.
So he passes the Currency Act, which is going to move us to the gold standard. Again, monometallic standard. And there's also like a dingly tariff somewhere.
Dingly tariff.
I don't think that's what it's called. I'm not even.
Dangly.
Dangly, maybe. Nope, dingly.
It's dingly.
It's dingly tariff. It's just a protective tariff, which makes sense because, again, American businesses are like, you better step up and protect us against other competitors coming from outside the United States.
This will make more sense when we talk about the Eastern, the big business side of things, and the Northeast happening. But this kind of is going to lay the foundation there. Just know it's happening.
That's it.
And that's all we want.
Yeah. All right. Well, I think that is a nice little bow on this end of the semester. Stay tuned for more, folks.
See you in 2019.
See ya.